This is my sixth podcast interview, so
Oh, really? So you
yeah,
so you do this a lot then, or occasionally then, huh?
I've been trying to push this stuff mostly for physics, actually, but also for the ancient past. All right, so my name is Michael David Moreno. I am been studying the ancient past since 2012. I've also become an accidental physicist
Mhm.
at that time. At the same time, uh, just because I love literature and I actually learned physics from ancient literature.
Right, right.
Um, I do go by Michael when it comes to my professional career as a researcher. I go by David, my middle name, because I'm also a dance teacher. I used to be a professional dancer for 12 years,
That's
traveling around
good.
the
That's
world.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah, no, it was great, man. Now I teach dance. So everybody calls me David, like that knows me, but researchers and everybody that knows me, like the Ancient Astronaut Archive and
Yeah.
people, they all call me Mike. Mike or Michael, doesn't
Okay.
matter. Very
Well,
nice to meet you, Mr. Ellington. I
nice to
appreciate
meet you.
the fact that you take the time out to have a conversation.
Right, right. It's an honor because a lot of people, and you've been on social media long enough. A lot of people will talk a lot of stuff, but they don't ever want to have comparative study discussions. They don't ever want to get to the point where they're talking to somebody else who has done probably the same type of research that they have, probably less, probably more, doesn't matter. But the point is that they've done their research and they want to actually learn. A lot of people I've talked to, they sit there and say, you know, this is what I believe in. That's the end of it. They don't want to have no discussion after that. They don't want to learn anything else from that. And we always go in this circular motion on trying to find the truth because everybody feels like they have their own truth, and we're not having a comparative study discussion to come up with that truth. We're just, a lot of people just want to have their emotional feelings involved with their truth, what they believe in their truth. That's why we have so many different religions and so many different sections in our religions, because a lot of people have their own views in that religion.
So, are we starting with religions then? Because
Well,
I'm ready for that.
I want to know, what is your idea of what is considered a religion, and what is your idea of the first religion or first rituals that were given by humans?
Okay, let's start with this one, baptism. So, the original baptism was because humans stink. And so they had to wash into a river in order to meet the gods.
Right.
So that was how, and then that turned into it got crossed over into modern religions, which are offshoots of Judaism, which is very interesting because in Judaism, in the Torah, there is no actual word for God. It's
Right.
Elohim, which is plural. It means masculine and feminine. So there's no word for God. Um, a lot of people have a hard time with that one. It's very difficult. I let go of everything I learned or knew, and I was like, just start over
Mhm.
and let's see what's happening. And this is how I came to, like, there's a gentleman called like Biglino,
Yeah,
sorry.
I know.
He's Italian, I think. Um, but yeah, he goes all into that. His book is phenomenal. And so is Zechariah Sitchin's work and a few others. But I mean, yeah, so I think once Judaism kicked in, um, there are ancient brotherhoods
Mhm.
that create religions to manipulate mankind. Um, like Brotherhood of the Snake, the Freemasons, and and that's what they did. And they told us lies. So, for example, I discovered by studying the ancient past and learning physics from that, like, turns out the soul, afterlife, heaven, and hell don't exist. Like,
Mhm.
we die as much as if a flower dies, it's done. Like, that's
Mhm.
it. That's all there is. And that's why you have to do the best in your life to
Mhm.
just spread goodwill and just keep that going. But that was sad for me to learn that. That did break my heart. But then I was like, okay, well, I gave up everything. Like, I gave up what I thought I knew to learn whatever I could.
Mhm.
So um, I do find it interesting, and it's on my video, on one of the videos, and YouTube channel, like they talk about how Michael and Gabriel fought against Lucifer, which in the Sumerian culture, since you're studying it, is Michael would be Ninurta, Gabriel would be Nergal. And they fought Lucifer, who at that time would have been Marduk. Now, Nergal, he has an image of a serpent body with a lion's head of Judah and a moon and star. So it's basically the Islamic symbol plus Judaic symbol plus a satanic symbol.
Right.
And it's not a wonder to me why this happened. Like I kind of was like, okay, what's the easiest answer? But I feel like Islam and Christianity were created almost at the same time, relatively, in order to separate us, in order to perpetuate World War III, which is starting to happen.
Right.
And it's really sad because Gabriel, Nergal, his name Gabriel means word of God. So this deity, God, who is a physical being, calls himself God.
Right.
And right now, as Zechariah Sitchin had said, like there's different time periods where different gods are ruling. Right now, we are being ruled by Nergal, and he is not the word of God, because what this whole thing has happened is just perpetuating destruction, and we don't need that. You know, like I love humans. I love being human. I want to help my fellow humans. It's also very interesting that the Muslim culture, like burqas and all that stuff, the reason they covered themselves, as Mauro Beglino said, is because the gods would come down and they would just grab them and take them and rape them. So they had to cover themselves so that they weren't taken or grabbed and raped. And that's where that idea started. But if you look at both religions, Christianity and Islam, they have the same exact end times prophecy, including the Book of Mormon, except from different points of view.
Right.
One's going to be a destroyer, one's going to be a savior, but they're going to destroy the world, whoever it is.
One is going to be but a preserver.
Yep, but it's Nergal. It's not Jesus. And it's not whoever it is. It's one man playing both roles, and he's going to come down and destroy that eventually. And that to me is really sad, because like I said, I love humanity and I don't want that to happen.
Right.
You know, I think if more people knew about that, they would take a different point of view and just understand, like, look, for example, I still believe in the 10 Commandments. In fact, I have 2 more that I added in my physics book.
What's your book called?
What's that?
What's your book called?
I have 3. One's called The Kybalion and Physics. My website is kybalianandphysics.com. You can read, there's 7 chapters. I did not put this part into my website because it's very controversial. But the other one is called The Days Before the Flood. So I collected all this information, all the stories I could, Sumerian, Hindu, you know, all of it, into one little book. And then I also did a really extensive study on the Enuma Elish. That painting right there, that's the cover for the Enuma Elish, because I read what Zechariah Sitchin had to say about it, and I was like, okay, let me find out if what he says is true. So I went down. The purpose was, as he said, like, the planets are the gods in the order that they come in. I agree with Zechariah Sitchin in its entire premise. Well, we're not alone. There's no God, there's gods. But I disagreed with the tiny, minute details that he had to say about it.
Right.
So, but yeah, so I have my cheat sheet here in case you have questions about that.
Oh yeah, I'm the same way. I actually started off with Eric von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods.
Yeah, I love it.
That's the book that I started off with.
Hey, you
Celestial.
can't call them aliens if they were here first.
Right,
Come
right,
on.
right. Well, I
If
mean,
they created
technically, right.
us,
You
they're not aliens. Then
technically you're right.
that makes us a third alien.
Technically, you're
Um,
right. And I'll tell you, Eric von Daniken's book was an eye opener to me. After I read his book, I read all of Zachariah Sitchin's book, the Earth Chronicles, especially the Earth Chronicles. I read them like 5 or 6 times, and there's some things that I seen them in there. I mean, the color code is not hard to miss. Anybody that's researched his books, read his books, when you don't even have to see the letters on the books. You can literally look at the colors, the color scheme of them, and tell that these are the Earth Chronicles. And Zachariah Sitchin was right about a lot of things. He has a lot of historical truths in his books about a lot of things that's going on. I do disagree with some of the stuff, particularly Planet Nibiru. And the only reason why I don't agree with Planet Nibiru is only because when I go to the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature or read the book, The Ancient Literature of Sumer, which is by Oxford University, both website and the book, they actually don't share Planet Nibiru. They actually say that it was a city, and that city was Nipper. Or
there are two opinions from peer reviewed. One that
Mhm.
it was a city. Two that it's actually Jupiter.
Right, exactly. Because it was Jupiter at one time, especially in the Babylonian time frame. That's when it, you get the idea of it being Jupiter or
If Eric von Daniken is the father of the ancient astronaut movement, I believe Sitchin is the godfather of it.
yeah.
Because
And I really enjoyed his books. The only issue that I have, and it's not particularly his books, because he only shared what, and this is just me, as being a researcher, somebody who's trying to research some. Back in 1976, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, where we can get onto something and just look up something where, and what I mean is basically the internet. We had to go to encyclopedias. We had to go through all these different books. You had to literally go to the library, and you remember the index cards. You had to go through the index cards to
yes, I
see
do.
what you wanted to do. So he did the best that he could. The problem is that some of his followers believe everything that he said was 100% correct. And that's where the
That is a
issue is.
problem.
That's the problem, because when you tell them, hey, according to the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, they actually don't talk about Planet Nibiru. They actually talk about a city, and they will fight you and argue with you up and down. And I don't mean no disrespect to them. I try to make them understand. Zachariah Sitchin had his idea. I'm curious. Have you ever read anything from Anton Parks?
No, I have not. But
So
regarding Zachariah Sitchin's translations on Nibiru, I would say it's very, very controversial.
yeah, very.
Um,
Very.
because, I mean, we have so many space satellites and no one's found that planet.
Yeah.
Nobody. There are two planets outside of our planets. They're like moons, but and who knows? Like, we
But
haven't
see,
found it. So it's
he,
very
he
difficult. Like,
he uses cylinder seal V8243 as his idea of that being a planet Nibiru. The one where there's the cylinder in the top, I think left corner, it has like 11 circles, and then in the middle of it, it has the sun, or depicts what is the sun. And
seeing
it's
it.
like, yeah. So he uses that. But see, a lot of people don't understand is, and they tell me, well, you got to look at the cylinder seal from the Sumerians. And I'll be like, which cylinder seal? And they'll be like, the cylinder seal. And I'll be like, are you talking about the Akkadian cylinder seal VA243? Because that's the only one that I know that actually indicates that. And I think a lot of problems is that a lot of people like to group everything into the Sumerians, the Babylonian traditions, the Hittites, the Assyrians, the
Acadians,
Akkadians.
Mesopotamians.
Exactly. They like them bolted all into one of the Sumerians, and it's not actually the Sumerians. See, a lot of people don't understand this, and I don't know if you know it or not, but the Sumerians and the Akkadians actually arrived on the scene at the same time, and before both of them,
That I did not know.
yeah. So what I found out was when you look at the cuneiform text, they say from modern academia, I like to use JSTOR, JSTOR. I don't know if you know about that website. It's a
I do
peer-reviewed
not.
article. Yeah, it's a very beautiful website. It's a peer-reviewed website. It's basically where you have to have a membership for it too. I don't know how I got my membership. I know I was in college at one time and I applied for it, and I think they gave it to me because I was a college student at the time, and I got a lifetime membership for it, or maybe I signed up for it at the right time and got got grandfathered in for it and stuff. But they talk about that when they found the Sumerian cuneiform text, they actually thought, and this is vice versa too, when they found the Akkadian text, they thought that it was either Sumerian or Akkadian. They didn't know which one. And then when they started finding the little details in those cuneiform texts, that's when they realized, okay, this may be just the Sumerians and this part may be the Akkadians, but they don't know exactly, how to date that. There's always controversy when it comes to this stuff because everybody has their own way of dating everything. Some people use or not radio, carbon dating, and some people use, different types of dating systems and stuff like that. And I love these discussions because I don't know it all. I mean, I see all the books that you have in the background. I have my books in my house. A third person can have all their books. We may have, the basic foundations of books like Zachariah Sitchin and Eric von Daniken, but we have branched out into different types of books. You know what I mean? And that's why I mentioned Anton Parks, because Anton Parks actually has a book called Eden.
And I'm writing that down. Anton Parks.
Yeah, Anton Parks has a book named Eden. Okay, it's not on. The last time I looked on Amazon, it was actually not being able to be sold because people weren't selling it, and it was like, and then it came back like a few months later, and it was worth like 3 times more than what it was worth. I think I paid like $60-$70 for it. I think when I last seen it, it was like $200 and something because it was a hot item. And in his books, he actually tells you the cuneiform tablets where to look this stuff up at, like from the British Museum or CDLI, the Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative, where you can actually look at the cuneiform tablets for yourself. Like you can actually look at the physical tablets. They have pictures of it. They have drawings of it to, show how it looks in a drawing setting and stuff like that. So it's so interesting to know that, because we was talking about religion earlier. It's so interesting that the Sumerian, Akkadians, or I should just say the Mesopotamians, period, have some kind of similarities with the Holy Bible. Because you mentioned the Elohim. I actually done a podcast discussion with Jeff Benner. I don't know if you know who that is.
I do.
And he actually told me who the Elohim is. And you're right. It could mean, multiple gods, or it could mean one God, depending on, how the context of the word base of the sentence or the word that is being used.
I'd like to make 2 comments if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
One, I don't translate any of those ancient texts. I just read all the translations, but I like to call myself a storyologist. So like I take these stories and I compare them to one another. I mean, like figuring out the Enuma Elish took me 5 years, and then I painted the whole thing out because I'm an artist. And to create this book, it's a really small book. But 2, the other point that you brought up was peer reviewed, and I do not trust peer review. Especially now that I'm a physicist as well, like when I hear, I mean, come on, M string, give me a break. So like, check out my website, kybalianandphysics.com. Like,
oh yeah,
there's 7 parts. There's the first part and then an explanation and then the rest of the 6. And I do talk about that, but peer reviewed is, I feel, and this is me being a conspiracy theorist, it's a controlled group. Control how you think. And just like religions, control how you think. And I get it, like religions are a good thing in order to, for most people who aren't doing into this, it just helps to make them feel like they're going to be better people. That's great. I love it.
Yes.
But if you really want to know, you can still be a good person without having to accept ideas of afterlife or souls, spirits, all that stuff, and that's where I stand on that. So, but yes, I've been digging through this stuff since 2012, like a kid studying for finals for years.
Right. Yeah. And it's, I'm going to tell you, researching this stuff takes time. A lot of people don't realize that. Like you just can't read one book one time and be like, you got the answers. There's no way, I I've
Absolutely
watched
correct.
I've watched movies multiple times. And every time I watch that movie, even when it's the movies that I've watched since I was a little kid, I still find new things that I've learned only because I paid attention to different parts of the movie at a certain time when it came
Mm-hmm.
up. And it's the same thing with the book. You can read a book. Like there are times when I read a book, right? And I'll be in my zone and I'll read it. And then, my kids would distract me and then I forget my place because where I was at. And I go back and read it. And I'll be like, I know I read this part, but I don't remember it. And then I'll read something else in that book or in that part that I was just in the zone with and find something new. And I know a lot of people who have read Zachariah Sitch and they really believe 100% what he says. And I really do believe that's a problem because once you stop at 1976 in that investigation of what he did, and you're telling me that everything that he wrote or everything that came after that is no longer true. And what I think hurt Zachariah Sitchin the most, and this is just my personal opinion, if you look at the Lost Book of Enki, if you take that book, open it up and look into the flap, it actually says it's fiction. He literally labeled his book fiction. And
And
that
I get it, and I disagree with that book. I appreciate that book,
Mhm.
but even me, like with the books that I wrote about the ancient past, I label them as fiction.
Right.
I understand what he was doing. He was trying to create a story, but he was also taking ideas from like pop culture, like
Mm-hmm.
ozone layer hole, and saying that, oh, Nibiru, they're trying to collect gold to fix the ozone layer. And I
Yeah,
was like,
I cannot find that anywhere. Like
you
literally,
know,
like I've offered people, you know, um opportunities to say, hey, look, please just tell me where it is. If I begged people, hey, tell me where it says it at. And they'll say, just look at the Lost Book of Enki. But I said, tell me what cuneiform tablet says that. Tell me
that's
what,
what I'm talking about.
yeah.
The other one that I can't find is he says that Alexander the Great found the body of Marduk in a coffin with oil
Mhm.
and flowers. There is no text. I've been looking for it for years and I cannot find that. And I was like, did he die? But the only evidence I have is Marduk is also Amen Ra, and it's probably the reason that we say Amen because we're saying his name. Same thing with Alalu,
Mhm.
who's the first name on the Sumerian king's
Yeah.
list. On the Sumerian king's name, his name is Loris, but he's Alalu. He used to rule heaven for 162 162,000 years.
Yeah. And
Um,
you and I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you know who Dr. Sasha Lesson is?
no, I do not.
So he was actually a friend and student of Zachariah Sitchin. And I've done, I think, at least 10 podcast episodes with him on my YouTube. And he goes into detail exactly what Zachariah Sitchin shares to him and his wife, actually, Janet Lesson. And he talks a lot about what you just said, too, about how, who Marduk was and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to
No,
just,
that's fine.
yeah.
You know, the one thing that I found just out of names is if Alalu, okay, we're going to get into a conversation about original language here in a second, is hallelujah. We're
Mhm.
saying that because Yah in Hebrew means God, hallelujah.
Mhm.
So that's Alalu. So he must have died. I do believe he was killed on or taken to Mars and killed there. I don't know about the face on Mars story, but I kind of believe it. But I have no proof. How am I going to get there to see?
Have you ever seen that picture of the face on Mars? I think it was. I think
I've
that's yeah,
seen the original picture and I've seen the new picture.
yeah. How they edited it out.
I don't know what they did. That's
You
why I
know,
said I don't trust peer reviewed. Like,
you know what's so funny is, and I agree with you with peer reviewed articles because a peer reviewed article. This is how I see peer reviewed articles, and I put it into the justice system. If I was to commit a crime, right? Whether no matter what my status is on this planet, if I was to commit a crime, there will be a juror of people who would determine my fate from that crime, right? And they would be considered my peers. They could be billionaires, it could be millionaires, or it could be broke people, poor people, it doesn't matter. But they would be considered my peers. They would be college professors, they could be teachers, they could be a traffic cop or a police officer that works in the headquarters, but they will be considered my peer. So when I look at peer-reviewed articles, all I see is that you could get a group of people who either agree with you or disagree with you, because there's not a set of group people who will peer review your article. It's just a set of people who are in that field, and it could be hundreds of people. You could get 18 people from that 100 that agree with you, and then you can find another 25 that don't agree with you, right? But your article can still be in a peer-reviewed journal. Academia.com, I think it's called. A lot of people can go on there and put an article on there, and that's actually a peer-reviewed website, but their article is not necessarily peer-reviewed. It's just a peer-reviewed website, or is considered a peer-reviewed website.
Man, as a physicist, like, I get so much feedback. Physicists hate me, because I propose a different atomic model closer to what Max Planck did, rather than what James Chadwick proposed to us and what we're learning now. And it relates that energy is masculine and feminine, not positive and negative, because of nature. Right. And it explains everything, like, so simply, like gravity, the space between atoms, atomic vibration, electricity, magnetism. It explains all that. That's something quantum physics has not been able to do. And that's peer reviewed, And here I have a simple book, a simple website that just has, it's all illustrated. There's no math. People are staring at the chalkboard at abstract symbols, and they're not giving us any answers. And so, but I was in 2012, that's when this happened. I was just like, I got to paint all this out, and just short explanations, simple sentences. And that's all it is, because, I believe that energy is simple. It's simpler than biology. You didn't need math, biology, anatomy, environmental sciences. Why would we need it to understand the basis of nature? And quantum physics right now is saying energy has nothing to do with nature. Like, and but they hate me. Like, I get insulted. I've learned to take it. At first I didn't, but I had to learn. So
yeah, that's the hardest thing. I was actually told that, and this is from a good friend of mine, and they'll hear it after, because I'm going to keep it in the video. They told me that I'm a little too aggressive when I tell people that they're wrong, and I think the only reason why is because there are too many people who say absolutes, and I don't like absolutes. I really don't, because it's disrespectful to me, it's disrespectful to you, it's disrespectful to anybody who spends thousands of hours researching, reading, picking up these books, trying to figure it out, putting these puzzles. I got a notepad here. I'm taking notes from you. I got a notepad next to me on the left side. I have my website. I literally take everybody's information and I research what they say. And that's why one of the most crucial question that I always ask everybody is, can you tell me where to read it from? Like, tell me what book to read it from. Tell me what ancient text to read it from. Tell me what modern academia. Tell me esoteric. Tell me Gnosticism. Tell me something where I can read it. Don't tell me to go do my research on my own, because guess what? I did my research, and my research led me to where I'm at. And if I'm wrong, then I need guidance into the right location. I need you to guide me to the light to tell me, hey, this is what is actually truth, or maybe possibly the truth. I don't know exactly how we got to me and you, where we got to being on Zoom. I know I talked to a lot of people. I know you liked some of my stuff. I liked a lot of your stuff too. We discussed on Facebook, and we had.
I hope we keep doing that. I love the interaction.
Oh yeah, we can definitely do it. We can do this once a week if you want to. I would love to, but I don't never take anything that I say as absolute, because every time I read one book and then turn around and research what that book said, and through another book or a peer-reviewed article or Gnosticism or esoteric or whatever it may be, I always find something that contradicts what I read before. And that makes it hard for me, because it's now like, okay, I read this and now I read that, and now I'm confused because both of them clash about each other. And point example, planet Nibiru. There are millions of people who believe there's a planet Nibiru, but can't provide any cuneiform text that says that, and cannot provide any mathematical equation on where that planet's at in our solar system.
The only text I found that maybe relates to that is the Sumerian kings list, because when kingship descended from heaven, they did not descend from a spiritual place. It was something from the heavens, somewhere. So I don't know where that is. I don't know. It's rather known, the Celtic culture, the Hebrew culture, that theophany that happened with Moses happened in Saudi Arabia, it turns out, Mountain of Moses. But I think it was higher than that. I think it was the sky.
And you know what? And I believe that too, because if you look at mathematically at what they say from NASA, and you don't even have to look at NASA. You can look at the mathematical equations from around the world according to our solar system. They say that there are billions of planets out there, possibly billions of galaxies out there. And that means if that's possible, billions, that means it's possible that there is something out there other than us. It has to be. Like, I believe in aliens. I believe in extraterrestrials. One of my favorite abductions that I've ever heard was Betty at Barton Hill. That's the one that I gear to all the time. And the reason why is because, one, I am mixed. My mother is German and my father is African American. And I'm actually...
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. And it's interesting to know that my mom is actually Turkish, and she may have some Japanese, Italian, and some stuff in her. So I always wanted to know where the origins of the information come. It obviously came from somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, we know that the Sumerians recorded it because they are considered the first founders of the writing system, of an intense writing system, a very intense one where it tells you everything that, that they possibly recorded, from, daily lives, from selling things, from trading to, rituals that they had. And I get very confused when, because we talked about religion, I learned that Neanderthals, and this is possibly true, this possibly could be something that many people believe, not just me, but because of what they share in about the Neanderthals. They say that Neanderthals actually buried people, and that was the beginning of religion. Now, I don't know what the beginning of religion is. There's so many different ideas. The prayers, believing in a different God.
I think that was a learned trait. There is a book called The Book of Adam and Eve.
I got it.
They talk about how Adam keeps dying. They had to bury him. I think they took that ancient story and applied it to Christianity rather than just keep the story. So it was some kind of monk or priest, Christian priest, that translated that story in order to fit Christianity. But it's very interesting. Neanderthals came after Homo sapiens. And the reason is Homo sapiens were starting to mate with the hominids. That's where Neanderthals came in. And like the first race of humans, which, by the way, were black.
It's funny that you say that, because I'm going to go into that after that.
Because the Sumerian text says they were the color of dry blood. I looked up an image of color of dry blood, and I was like, what? There's like red, dark red, brown, brown, black, and then super dark blue. And I was like, what?
Like Krishna.
Okay. Now I look at all these Hindu paintings of like the gods, and I'm like, okay, that's, but yeah, it's so interesting to me that the Bible took this story of the first race of people into man and a woman called Adam and Eve when it wasn't. And the entire culture, and they painted all white people, and it's not. It's black people. I think that was the first race of men.
I'll be honest with you. I don't like the word black, only because
I'm sorry.
No. You didn't disrespect me. Trust me. No. This is good. This is good because like I said, I love these discussions. The reason why I don't like the word black is because in America, we consider people black. You can see me. My hair is not the typical, what an African American hair would look like. They actually have textural different type of hair. Right. But I did a podcast discussion with Dr. Keith Chang, and he and he's a geneticist. He's actually the founder of, and it's so funny that you bring this up because I love these discussions because I love telling people what I've learned, and not just from what I've read, but actually done podcast discussions with, you know, well-renowned individuals who are in these studies. And Dr. Keith Chang, I did a podcast with him probably like 6 to 7 months ago. I haven't launched it yet because I'm waiting to launch it next year. And
why is that? Why are you waiting?
It's just I want to, I keep watching it to learn. I don't want to launch it without understanding exactly what he says. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to launch it like, hey, I know what he's talking about. I want to launch it and be like, okay, now I understand exactly what he means. So that's one of the reasons why I want to wait. And then so what he told me was he's the founder of SLC 2485. And that's the genetic mutation on how we got Caucasian skin and white skin. And he found it not because he was looking for the why we have black people or white people. He found it because he was looking for the cure for skin cancer. And yeah, so you know, I've read his articles, I watched his videos, I've read, I mean, I sat there and studied this guy for at least 15 to 20 hours straight, like hardcore. Like, he only has but so many videos out there. He only has but so many you know, articles out there. So I've read them so many times. And when he told me that he found it because he was looking for skin cancer, he told me that the white skin didn't come to maybe about 6 to 15,000 years ago. So it makes me wonder, you know, I've learned that from my study that
what term should I use?
Oh, see, I like to use melanin. Why?
Melanin.
Yeah, I like to use that term, and the only reason why is because when you look at somebody who's from the Dominican Republic, they may look like somebody who's actually from Africa, right? They might have the textured hair, they may have the skin that looks the same. The only way you can tell the difference from them to Africans from Africa is their language, the way they speak. And a lot of Dominican Republican people don't like, or a lot of Dominicans, I said that wrong, don't like to be classified as black people. But when you come to, like me, I'm from Georgia. I'm down here in the South. The school that I went to is Little Wissy. That can't get any country than that, you know what I mean? And I was told I was black, but I'm mixed. I'm really mixed. You know, I'm my father's African American, my mom is German with, you know, Turkish and some other stuff in her. And when people look at me, my hair wasn't always this long. You know what I'm saying? I grew my hair out after I got out the military. After I got wounded, and
you were in the military?
Yeah, I was in the military for 13 years. I've been to Afghanistan twice. I've been to Iraq twice. I was wounded in Afghanistan. I'm actually a Purple Heart recipient, so I have a Purple Heart.
Wow.
Yeah. So
okay, well, thank you for your service. That's crazy.
It's an honor. And you know, I wanted to know my heritage because when I found out I was Turkish when I was little and I was over there, you know, on that side of the world, I wanted to know more. And I actually seen people who look like me. If I was to stand next to an Iraqi, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You would literally, you couldn't tell the difference. My hair was short. You know, I have the same type of hair structure or hair texture that some of them have. So I wanted to know my history. And when I found out that, you know, that the idea of black people are considered black because of the American idea of it, I learned that that's not probably the word that I want to use. Maybe I want to use the word melanin because not everybody considers them black. You know, you got Caribbean people who are in America who don't consider themselves black.
Man, when I lived in Japan, when I went to the music store, there wasn't a hip hop section. It was called black music.
Really? But see, that's the Western idea of how we think. You know, that's how the America controls how the world thinks, literally, in a lot of aspects of things. It's really sad because we can go into the idea, like you said, they weren't white people. Well, what is white people? There are literally Mexican people and Puerto Rican people who have
Mexican.
Yeah. If I was to look at you, I would be like, hey, he's a white guy. No disrespect. But when you would tell me, hey, well, I'm Mexican, then I would be like, okay. You may
English
have
is
some.
actually my second language. I speak Spanish fluently.
Oh, that's that, and I can't even tell through your accent. You see what I'm
Well, no,
saying?
I mean I learned them both, but I learned Spanish first, and
Right,
then
right. But what I'm saying is, you don't have that accent to be like, okay, yeah, he
you should
got.
hear my mom. She
My
has the
wife,
accent too.
and the same thing with my wife. My wife's Puerto Rican, and her mother and her father spoke a lot of Spanish to her, but she doesn't really speak Spanish. She speaks it. She knows it. She knows Portuguese. She knows how to speak it, but she doesn't speak it like how her family did, like how her mom and dad did it. And I guess in their household, it was more speaking Spanish versus English. And you know, I always wanted to know, why do we fall so much on the word black? And it's no disrespect. Trust me, you didn't disrespect me. You're not going to disrespect anybody else on that. It's just what we are learned, what we are taught through our learnings from what we see. It's not something that we um purposely do. When people hear black people this and black people that, there's a certain demographic of people that you see like that, but it's not always like that. So when I read about the Sumerians and they talked about the black-headed people, I wanted to know, why would the Sumerians consider themselves the black-headed people? Because black hair is the most, you know, colorful
I,
type color type hair in the world. It's like
okay, going back to like the ancient past with Sitchin and white people or Caucasians,
mhm,
and melanin tone people.
mhm,
Um, Sitchin made a remarkable conclusion about what the mark of Cain was, but I took it to a different level, and I was like, okay, if everybody was melanin colored, why would the other people stay away from him? Because the gods had white skin.
mhm,
So they took away, through DNA injections, his melanin and also made his hair white. And they probably took away his beard. I agree with that. And so that would have been the start of the Caucasian race. But Noah from the Book of Enoch was also Caucasian, and that's the whole story. Was his father was like, "Is this my son?" He had to go to his father, and then he had to
yeah.
go to his grandfather, and then he had to go to his great grandfather, and great grandfather said, "Yeah, this is your
Because he
son."
was scared. He was scared that his son came out a lighter skin tone.
Well, skin tone, bright yellow hair, white hair. He was like, his head shape was different, the
Yeah.
elongated head ish. You know, um, and it's one of my favorite details about Noah is Gilgamesh. In Gilgamesh finally meets Utnapishtim, in this cave or whatever, and they're the same height. So Noah would have been
Mhm.
a giant Caucasian man, and it's crazy, but it's cool, you
Yeah.
know. So I just know stories. I know stories. I don't have details. I just know stories.
And you know what? The details is hard. And the reason why I say it's hard is because you're going off of somebody's interpretation of an interpretation of an interpretation. It's just like lining 10 people up in a line, telling the first person the story and telling that first person, when I tell you this story, you're going to tell the person next to you this story. And then that person is going to tell the next person, and so on and so forth. By the time it comes to the 10th person, you're going to have the foundational story that you told the first person, but that 10th person is going to add stuff and take away stuff, and it's not going to be the same exact story you told the
You are
first person.
absolutely correct. And that's exactly why I don't just read, like, for example, Gilgamesh. I have 7 versions of it
Yeah.
on, the Enuma Elish. I have 8 versions of it because I wanted to compare all of them. Like, because the story will make sense if you compare. Like I said, I don't translate, but I'm a storyologist. Like,
mm-hmm.
so, and you're absolutely right. You have to take all the stories and compare them and see what's happening. And to your previous point earlier, where do these stories come from? Well, they were passed down, unlike the Sumerians, which were written down in
Mm-hmm.
cuneiform or whatever. But yeah, they were passed down. So they start getting crazy. Like Norse mythology, come on, people turning into animals.
That's where you get the reptilians, the Greeks and stuff like that. You
Yeah,
get
yeah.
you get more of that idea that we were reptilians and stuff like that. And it's so interesting that you brought that up because you said gods with white skin. Now, if I was to believe Zechariah Sitchin's idea, right, that the Anunnaki came from a planet named Nibiru that orbited our sun every 3,600 years, that means they didn't have a sun of their own, right? Their sun was our sun. Well, we know by science that, and this is what Dr. Keith Chang also told me, the closer we were to the equator, the darker the skin the individual was, right? And the further we moved away from it, the lighter skin. So that's where SLC 2485 came from. The first person that left Africa into Europe somehow activated. And that's where we got the whiter skin. And that's where it constantly, got lighter and lighter. But if I was to think of Zechariah Sitchin's idea, that means the Anunnaki would have been a whiter skin tone because they didn't have that
Well, I
sun
mean, we got to look at all
breathe.
the ancient stories. Like, how many stories do we have? Millions, thousands at least, of gods mating with females and giving birth to
The Nephilim.
different races of men. Like, that the Asian race, for example, Asiatic race, is, look at what they do. Or you can go online and they're like the most incredible dancers, very intelligent. The, Africans are so musically and athletic and musically inclined and athletic, and they have so much emotion. And to me, that means emotion comes higher intelligence, and they just haven't, especially with our modern culture here in the United States, it's being subverted because of the modern hip hop culture, which is,
Don't even get me started on hip hop, man. The way we changed music to today, man. I grew up in the 80s. I'm 39 years old. I was born in 1983. I'm about to be 40 in the next 15 days. What is it? In the next 15 days, I'm going to be 40.
Early happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. And, music back then was about teaching us stuff, teaching us about our history, not just Black history, but our history in general. There's a lot of famous rappers out there. One of my favorite rappers is Nas. He talks a lot about aliens. He said he witnessed a UFO. I don't know if you know who Nas is.
I do.
Yeah, but he raps about him seeing
I teach hip hop, so I know hip hop.
Yeah, so he talks about this stuff, one of my favorite artists that has anything to do with these extraterrestrials and stuff like that is Donnie Arcade. I'm gonna give him a shout out. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's an artist.
Do not know who that is.
He is
Donnie who?
Donnie Arcade. Now, do you know who Billy Carson is?
Yes.
That's one of his artists. And Donnie Arcade, I hope when I tag him in this, because I have him as a friend on Facebook, but he raps about the Anunnaki coming from planet Nibiru and stuff like that. He gives the idea that from the Zechariah Sitchin, whether I believe it or not, of Zechariah Sitchin's idea, the possibility of that being true, there's a possibility out there. Did the Sumerians talk about it in their cuneiform tablets? No, they didn't. At least the ones that I came in contact with, the ones
they brought it up once in the Sumerian Kings list, and that was pretty much the only place I could find it.
There's a do you know about sacred-text.com?
Yes.
So if you go in there and you type in Enuma Elish, I think it'll bring up one from, I believe it's Lovecraft. I can't remember who it is.
Yeah, I have it on my shelf.
Yeah, so Nibiru is actually mentioned only one time in that Enuma Elish version or that translation, and it doesn't has anything to do with it doesn't indicate that it's actually.
There's another translator that brought up the name as well, but like I said, like you said, there's translations of translations. Mm-hmm. Like it's very different. So by the way, I'm 47. I'm about to be 48.
Don't even look like it.
Yeah, I'm old now.
Don't even look like it, man. You still look like you about in your 20s, 30s, 40s.
No, last year I did my final ballet performance.
You do ballet? That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever seen the Nutcracker. The very last dance is Cavalier and Sugar Plum Fairy, and there's all these lifts, and you're throwing girls around. It's a 5-minute dance. It was so hard. 46, at the end of my 47th beginning of my 47th year, that's the last bit. Like, I'm not doing that shit anymore.
When we look at the ancient civilizations like the ancient Egyptians, the Sumerians, Göbekli Tepe for one, do you know what a savant is? Do you know what savant syndrome is?
I do not.
Okay, so I always try to find answers to the questions of how things were done. A lot of people will say, we don't know.
SAVANT.
Yep, savant syndrome. Yeah, write that down. That's very important. And the reason why I say that is because savant syndrome. Are you able to get on the internet right now on that computer?
Yeah, my work computer.
Yeah, look at that. And savant syndrome is basically people who are autistic. I don't know the right term for it. My wife always has to correct me for it because I don't understand it, but or how to say it correctly. But these are individuals that have intelligence beyond the ability of what we would consider what we
That's
would
what it
know.
says.
Exactly, right? And these individuals may have been the type of people who built the pyramids, who built the Göbekli Tepe, was able to figure out how to move these stones and so on and so forth, because there was this individual, and there's many of them actually, but I remember this individual particularly because it's very interesting. He flew over a city. I can never remember what city it was. I want to say it was Japan, but it could have been New York. I can't remember exactly one. But if you look up savant syndrome and you look up the people who have savant syndrome, his name would definitely pop up. And he flew over one of these cities. I believe it was Japan, and he did a 15-minute flyover, right? And then he came back to wherever they brought him at, and he said, "I'm going to draw out this city completely." Like how you would see on Google Maps or something like that, or Google Earth or anything like that. And he drew it so precise that it was more accurate than what they would have been able to produce through Google Maps or Google Earth. Like he literally drew everything from a 15-minute flight perfectly. Now that's extraordinary, right? Now, have you ever watched Stan Lee show Superhumans?
Yes.
So that there were people who had godlike abilities, right? These individuals had abilities that would look like what could be a godlike, right? This show came out, I think like 2012 or something like that. I can't remember exactly when. But if you look at the show Superhumans from Stan Lee, he had so many people that were able to do things that if you were to go and see it from your eyes, you would be like, this has got to be a trick of some sort, or this has got to be a god, I guess you can say. And let me
pause right here because it's getting dark and I want to turn this light on a little more so you can see me better.
Okay, I'm gonna grab something to drink real quick then.
My light is broken.
It's all right.
Opened up the curtains.
It's all right. It's all right. But going back to Stan Lee, there were a lot of things that I watched in that show that was extraordinary, and I wonder a lot of times because there's a lot of, how can I say it, inventions that we have that go back thousands and thousands of years ago, and you're wondering how did they figure this out? As a hunter and gatherer, your whole day is upon hunting and gathering, hunting food, gathering the whatever you need for that time frame. And I wonder, were these people who had savant syndrome, who were born at that time, were they the ones that were back in wherever camp they was at, telling people, hey, we can do this to better our lives?
That's a really good, interesting point. Have you seen Mohan Praveen's channel? He's a Hindu guy from India. I mean, he is showing proof that the ancient past had lasers. And I just watched a video on the internet, Facebook, that we finally have the technology to carve stones, carve perfect shapes out of stones with lasers. And I was like, this is what happened in India. That's probably, I don't know about Göbekli Tepe, my personal opinion, but it's just an opinion. I don't know if I'm right or not, is it's a tribute to where Noah landed from the ark. Well, that's why there's all these animals, because I also believe that the ancients had knowledge of DNA and they were manipulating whatever animals they had to create new ones. That's why all the animals changed. Like the zebra did not exist prior to the Ice Age. How did that come to be? It was manipulated. They were creating animals. And that's kind of, like I said, I'm a storyologist. That's a story like Ptah from Egypt. You know, supposedly the story is he was creating life by throwing sperm.
Right.
But I believe what they were saying was he was manipulating DNA and creating new life, which he was told to do by one of the gods, Enki or Khnum. That's another thing I disagree with Zechariah Sitchin. He says that Ptah is Enki, and I'm like, no. Ptah is actually one of Noah's sons. Because if you look at the name Ptah, that's where his name should be. There's no vowels in Egypt.
Right.
And you look at the Bible, it's Ptah. I'm like, okay, that makes it sense. I have videos about this on my channel.
I'm gonna watch. I've watched. I think I watched 1 or 2 videos. I can't remember. And I know
it's
when
all
you
good, man. Take your time.
You told me about them, and I watched like 1 or 2 of them, and I was like, man, this is interesting. And that's why I'm bringing up the points that I'm bringing up now.
But yeah, no, I believe that in the ancient past, before Abraham, because even in like the book of Jasher, his sons were like jumping up 20 feet, you know, onto walls in order to invade a city. Like that's superhuman stuff.
Yeah.
And they, you know, we can get into the original language maybe if we do a second interview.
Look, no, I'm gonna tell you right now, there's not going to be a maybe. If you want to do this more often, I love these discussions. If you watch my YouTube, I literally have discussions with people from all around the world.
Is your YouTube channel under your name?
Yeah, it's if you go to YouTube and type in "Rebirth of the Word," you're gonna find
Rebirth
it.
of the.
Yeah,
it's right behind you.
Yeah, you'll see it. You'll see the emblem and everything. I've literally had, and I'll tell you, when I started my YouTube, I was very nervous. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to share what I've learned. That's it. I didn't care about how good the quality was as far as, you know, editing and stuff like that. I just said the best way to learn how to do something is just jumping in and doing it. You know, you're going to learn on the way. You can show your growth through, you can show people your growth through things. You know, you don't have to start off being perfect. I feel like starting off being perfect shows people that you didn't really learn how to do it. I'm trying to show people that, hey, if you want to do something, this is my hobby. You know, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. I never used to read books. Never. When I was a kid, I would play video games, PlayStation, Xbox. When Xbox wasn't around when I was a little kid, but I would play Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, Sega Saturn.
Nintendo!
Man, I have a Nintendo Switch here. I have a PS5. I love video games.